What's up guys, welcome to my channel. So today we are going to talk about my favorite guitarist of all time, Dimebag Darrells, and we're going to do a full guitar lesson with breakdowns of every riff of This Love by Pantera. Now the first thing, I am tuned in E standard. I occasionally do some playthrough videos of Pantera solos, and there is one for This Love, and if you want to see the solo, make sure you go and check out that video. But Pantera famously do choose some weird tunings that are about 25 cents out of whatever standard or drop tuning that they chose at the time. So if you listen to the original recording, it's not quite gonna line up with standard tuning. But for the purpose of today's video for you guys with Floyd Roses, we're gonna just do it in standard tuning so it's easy for you guys. Okay, so let's get stuck in and let's firstly talk about the clean riff that is the main riff for this song. So it sounds like this. This is the first thing that we have to learn. So you'll notice that I'm using a strict alternate picking pattern on this, and Dimebag would change this up. Sometimes he would just do downs and ups on different live performances, but if you want to be a great guitarist, I always recommend to my students that you practice your alternate picking all the time and you choose riffs like this that actually work on the upstroke, which I'll show you guys in a second what I'm talking about here. And the reason behind all of this is because alternate picking is the hardest technique to develop and takes the longest amount of time. And getting this right hand really cranking is very difficult. So we want to take every opportunity that we can to develop the alternate picking technique. So what we need to do, we're going to make out this chord to start with. So we need to create almost a bar chord across the second fret. We're going to use our first finger to play the second fret on the bottom string, and then we want to bar it on the fifth string and the fourth string. But we then want to place our third finger as if we're playing a power chord on the fourth fret of the fifth string. Now you still hold your first finger nice and flat and tight up against the board, and then we're going to pick down, up, down, across the sixth, fifth, and fourth string. Now, once you get this, we then want to use our second finger on the third fret of the bottom string and same picking pattern, but then come back 5, 6. So this gives us our first lick. What I was talking about before with the alternate picking pattern here is very important. So we want to make sure that we are down, up, down, and when you hit this third fret on the bottom string with your second finger, you have an upstroke. Up, down, up, down, up. Then you should finish on an upstroke. That means we have played the full bar or 8 notes here correctly because we're finishing with an upstroke. So I'm big on signposting, and you guys, if you've seen some of my other lesson videos or gone through my 7-day free guitar boot camp for metalheads, I talk about this stuff. It's super important that we learn to sync up with our right hand. So we want a nice alternate picking pattern. We repeat this riff. Then for the next section, we just drop everything down a string. So it's literally the same riff, just we're going to start it from the second fret on the fifth string, then play the fourth fret on the fourth string, and then the second fret on the third string. Drop that second finger down, and then we're going to come back to the original riff. Now here's where things change up a little bit. So we're going to put our third finger on the fourth fret of the fifth string and our first finger on the second fret of the fourth string, and then we're going to use the open G. So we're going to pick 5, 4, 3 like this, alternate picking again, the same pattern, and then drop to the third fret on the fifth string with your second finger. Leave your first finger where it was. Then we want to go up and down on that, okay? So this part, we're going to go. Now you'll notice again when I drop to that third fret on the fifth string, it's an upstroke there. So now this time it changes. We're going to flatten our first finger and we're going to play the fourth fret on the fifth string, and then the second fret on the fourth string, and then the third string. Like so, and then drop back to our our second chord that we played before. So 3rd fret on the 5th string with 2nd fret on the 4th string, open 3rd string. So we actually put a little rest in here as well. So it's like, right, I'm exaggerating that, but we want to block that note off. So I use my right hand to do that. You'll see I pick, and then there we go. And we want to make sure that we've got an upstroke on that note. So now we play that twice, and then we come to the little tail here. So the tail is the 4th fret on the 6th string with the 2nd fret on the 5th and the 4th string. And then we're going to play an A minor chord. So this is the G shape of A minor. So we're going to use our pinky on the 5th fret of the bottom string. Then we're going to use our 2nd finger on the 3rd fret of the 5th string. And then we're going to play the 2nd frets of the 4th and the 3rd string with our 1st finger flat. We get this. So it's just a different voicing of an A minor chord. So this gives us our first riff, which when we put together, obviously this is the main guts of this song. So you want to repeat this with the verse, and then we can move on to the next section of this song. Okay guys, so I've changed my settings on my guitar. I now have some distortion, which you can hear here. Cheeky Dimebag, little squeal there. So for our chorus, we're going to play some power chords here, and we're going to need palm muting. Okay, so you guys, I talk about this in a lot of my videos. You're going to need to karate chop that bridge and make sure that you get a nice chuggy sound. But the guts of this chorus is basically changing from an E power chord to an F sharp. So we want 0 and 2 on the 6th and 5th string, and then 2 and 4. Now you'll notice I use my 2nd finger to play this E because I pivot around it to then hit the F sharp. This is a little trick I've learned over time from studying, James Hetfield's playing, Dimebag a little bit. It just makes these chord changes a little bit easier rather than going that way. I find that a little bit more jarring. So, okay, so the first thing we want to do is I like to alternate pick this. So I'm going to go down, up, like that on E and F sharp, and then I'm going to go start on the F sharp and then back to E and F sharp on the second one. And then the third one, I do a double on F sharp and then E and F sharp. So I get this. And you've got to make sure that you're really controlling your sound here because we've got some rests in between these notes. Then we have this. We have some freaky Dimebag sort of minor chords here. So he starts with a little downstroke on a mute like this, and then an upstroke on this chord, which is a C minor chord. So we want the 8th fret on the bottom string, and then we want the 6th fret on the 5th string there. So upstroke, then move it down a fret to a B minor, and then a G minor, so down to the 3rd and the 1st fret. So we get that, okay? So when we put this together, and those minor chords at the end there are open, they aren't palm muted. So this then repeats. And then we just simplify things a little bit, just E and F sharp. And then he doesn't put the scratch in on that last one, just plays the chords, and then again. That gives us our chorus. Then we're back to the clean riff and we can continue with the song. Okay guys, so now let's talk about the interlude. I think this is some of Dimebag and Vinny's best work here. I love how the brothers used to do this, where Vinny would leave space for Dimebag and just simplify the drums, absolutely tear it up with a wicked groove, and Dimebag would fill that space with just some epic guitar riffs. And this is one of those examples of, I think, one of the coolest Pantera moments. So we have this riff. Like this. Okay, so let's break this down. So what's going on here is Dime's doing a lot of chromatic climbing up this bottom string. I have a very strict alternate picking pattern, so you've got to make sure that when you learn this riff and you install it in your muscle memory slowly, you're doing the correct alternate picking and being very careful on that. You're going to create stutters with a riff like this if you break the alternate picking pattern or you double downstroke across the strings where you're not meant to. So the whole thing with alternate picking and a really, really cool groovy riff like this that's very consistent is the right hand needs to be like a pendulum. We want to dance on something like this. And if we're double downstroking, we kind of basically take a double step on one leg if we were dancing and we lose our balance. So it's very important that you guys take care of this when you're learning the riff and get it right, just as a precursor. Now let's break it down. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to climb up 0, 1, 2 on the bottom string. I'm doing this all with palm muting and with alternate picking, like so. Now this gets me in position for an F sharp power chord, which is what this riff is built around. So once I climb up to this position, see how my first finger did that work, I'm then going to hit the 5th of that power chord, which is the 4th fret on the 5th string, and then come back for 2 strokes on that F sharp, so the 2nd fret on the bottom string. Then I'm going to climb up and hit the top note of that power chord, which is the 4th fret on the 4th string, and then the 4th fret on the 5th string, and then I'm going to use my pinky to play the 5th fret on the 6th string. Now I'm going to do a little bit of a chromatic shuffle up, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to hit 5 again with my pinky, and then 2, 3, 4. So this is the riff, that's the breakdown. You might need to wind that back a couple of times and just re-watch. But it is one of these riffs where both the left hand and the right hand really have to be on point because it's quick, it's very consistent, and because Vinny leaves so much space for the drums, there's no room for error in this. So then we need to talk about the different fills that Dime does around this riff with each repetition. So on the second repetition, he stops here on the first chromatic climb up, so 2, 3, 4, and then he hits a G power chord, so just the 3rd fret and the 5th fret on the 6th and the 5th strings. So this second repetition, we get that. Then he goes back to what he did the first time. And on the final time, he stops when he comes back down to that C sharp or the 4th fret on the 5th string, and then he's going to climb up some power chords on the bottom string. So basically hit F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, and then a B flat. And then we get all of our different takes on that riff. And we get that absolutely amazing riff. This is like Dimebag at his best. Okay, now he ends this whole section by doing the chromatic climb up. And then he sits on a B, and there's a little bit of a dive with the bar on the end of that, okay? So and then we come to the breakdown section. So the breakdown section is basically a very, very simple chorus. You know, it's the classic bring the riff back but slower. It's almost as if Pantera invented that. So we get this riff. Now, I like to downpick this. It's slow enough that we can. So we're going to go E, F sharp, E, F sharp, E, F sharp, E, F sharp, E, G, E, F sharp. Again, up to the G. And then finish with an E to an F. So. Last one, he holds that F sharp and dumps the bar again, and then he goes back into the clean riff to get ready for the solo. Now, as I said, I do have a separate lesson on the solo that you guys can go and check out if you do want to learn that, but obviously today's lesson is focused on the rhythm guitar parts. So we've almost got all the parts for the song now, guys. So under the guitar solo, there are some subtle differences with the clean riff, but it changes midway through. So we have this beautiful little part here where after he has this part that's centered around the F sharp, we jump up. Here, so this one is a great left hand exercise because we're going to stretch out and play this chord and then do a lot of moving around with a good alternate picking pattern on the right. So what we do, 5th fret on the 5th string, then we want that with our pinky, then the 3rd fret on the 4th string, and then the 1st fret on the 3rd string. Make sure your hand is nice and arched so we get all of those notes ringing out. Then we're going to drop our pinky and use our 3rd finger on the 4th fret on that same 5th string. And we're going to go up and down on that one. So we get this. It's the same picking pattern that we had before on the clean riff. Then we're going to drop down further. Leave your 1st finger where it is, and then we're going to stack up here on the 3rd fret. So we want the 2nd finger on the 5th string, and then the 3rd finger on the 4th string. We're just going to climb up on that one, and then we're going to change our chord. We leave our 3rd finger where it is and drop the 1st finger down to the 2nd fret on the 5th string, and we're going to go up and down on this one. So that bar there is this. When we put this section together, we get that. And then after that, we're back. Ready for the chorus again. Okay guys, so the chorus is the same as before. You can go back to that section to learn that if you didn't pick it up the first time. There is a different post-chorus towards the end of the song. So it's basically a double time version of the breakdown riff. Okay, so we're going to go E to F sharp 4 times, and then an E to G, back to E to F sharp 3 times, E to G, then E to F. But obviously this is quicker. We get that. And then he has some pretty nasty and evil chords that then come into the outro breakdown. So it's just, the outro is again the breakdown, the slow riff, but we need to get this happening first. So let's look at these evil chords. So the first thing we want to do, we want to play an inverted power chord. We want the 2nd fret on the low E string and the 2nd fret on the 5th string, and then we want to play the 4th fret on the 4th string. We get this, which is actually a B, but an inverted B. then down to an E chord, then an F power chord, and then we want to play an inverted chord from the 3rd fret. So we should have 3, 3, and 5 across the bottom strings. So when we put this together, then we're ready for the slow breakdown again. And then the song essentially fades out on the clean riff and we are good to go for this song. So that gives you all the parts, guys. So if you enjoyed this lesson, make sure you give me a sub and comment below. The other thing is I have a free 7-day metal guitar bootcamp that you guys can check out if you want to upgrade your guitar skills and learn all of the different techniques and things that you're going to need to become a great metal player. So check that out. The link is in the description below. Now go and watch the solo lesson for this video if you want to get stuck into that. I'll put a link to it here. I'll see you in that video.